How are you doing from wherever part of the world you're listening to 89.7 Contact FM? You are listening to One on One with me, Eugene Anangwe. Hi, my name is Eugene Anangwe. Join me each and every weekday, Monday to Friday, as I host Rwanda's biggest one-on-one interview show. It's about digging for the answers. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in to 89.7 Contact FM. For those who are streaming us live, again, thank you very much for being a part of the program. For those who also don't know how to stream live online, the link is www.contactrwanda.com, and the hashtag that we are using to participate in the program, those who are using Twitter, it's hashtag 1on1RW. That is number 1, then on 1 RW. That's the hashtag that we're using right now. My guest in the program is none other than the Executive Secretary of the Rwanda Association of Journalists, and he's none other than Mr. Gonzag Muganwa. Welcome to One on One.
Thank you, Eugene, for having me.
Exactly. So definitely we're still talking media matters throughout this week, plus of course other issues that come along the way. We hosted here Jane Uwimana, who was also vying for the post of the Secretary General. You emerged as the Executive Secretary of the Association. Let's clear the air on this issue, because I saw recently Edmund Kagire complaining that Jane Uwimana was here on the show saying that he got the votes just because he called his friends. So what was the basis of these elections?
I just had it in the jingle, and I had the same thing about friends. That is very hard to determine on why a person votes for the other. But since the voters are journalists, and in any country, journalists are among the intellectual group, the people who make decisions based on proper judgment. We would think, at least as journalists think so. So, and since it was an open campaign, it had been advertised 1 month prior as per our statute that govern the association. So I think everybody had the right to campaign, to mobilize, to bring in people. Now, saying that people vote based on friendship
and not values,
not competence, not what they expect, because every individual has an interest. So you would need to have somebody who shares your interests, who at least can represent them to be elected to a position of leadership. So I think it was not based on friendship. No. I think it was based on what people presented to vote. But still the issue is when you say that your friends didn't show up, then why did you fail to mobilize them? What was the problem? Okay, but I'm not going to do, because I don't know the particular reasons why people voted for each candidate. For us as a secretariat, since I don't contest, I'm appointed. Was to carry out the communication strategy to make sure that people show up, and then those. So
you're the people who probably did not help Jane Uwimana's friends to show up, because she says I invited them, but they did not show up. But you say your work was to mobilize.
The most important thing is that they were invited and they got the messages. Now, why they didn't show up, I'm not in a position to know.
To understand. Now,
but they could have shown up and decided to vote.
There's something interesting you bring out on the issue of, people voted on different reasons, which probably some you cannot understand, some you cannot really explain here. Which brings us to the issue of having rules and regulations, and probably a guiding mechanism of what are going to be used or based on when it comes to voting. Are we not going to set our new ways of doing things? Are we just doing it the way politicians do, where we say you vote for whoever you want, of whoever or whatever cause you want? Can't we have a way of guiding people, or the guidelines, so that because we have heard of cases of vote buying in politics. So in this case, if someone was vying for a position and they bought the votes, you wouldn't care about it, so long as they were voting.
No, of course they are ethics. If there was evidence of vote buying, definitely there would be steps to remind as such. Even beyond...
What are those steps, for example? What are those mechanisms? What are those guidelines? What are those rules or codes of conduct?
Yeah, even before we look at the rules internally, we look at the code of conduct of journalists. This is provided by the media law.
Yes.
It's put in place by journalists. We consult widely, and it has articles that specifically bar any journalist from bringing the profession into disrepute, and also using any other incentives maybe to acquire anything, whether it is a story or not. And the moment is raised, but of course you have to have evidence. You cannot just speculate around it. Yeah, the good thing is that we haven't come across any something to that effect that could have been any vote by. Secondly, at least nobody is complaining that there was any rigging or tampering with the vote. People are saying that my people did not show up. So which is not anyone's business apart from whoever wanted to be supported and failed to mobilize their supporters. So yes, it definitely would not be encouraged at all. As far as talking about a guided vote, no, because when you try to guide in a democracy, or at least when you're trying to establish democratic principles and credentials,
yes,
and you try to guide, it could be the basis for dictatorship. If you have heard what they say in North Korea, all those dictatorships, they say the great guide, the leader, who is voted 100%. No, that is not true. So we just trust that people are intelligent enough to make a choice based on their interests.
Fair enough. So let's talk about the cause itself, the responsibility of this association. Many journalists actually are still grappling with the thought of understanding what does this association even stand for? What is their responsibility? Gonzag, in this new mandate, what are you trying to do differently in changing this perception, in changing this notion?
Yes, I understand that is a challenge. It's because that most of the time the association was not very active. I remember a few years ago, it was even a big struggle to make sure that an election takes place when a leadership replacing the other. But when you look at the mandate, it is very well stipulated when the association was founded in 1995. You see, it has been around for 19 years. And there are really core issues. Number one is the solidarity of members of the profession. This is a professional organization that brings together people practicing this particular profession, because at that time they considered the fact that the profession had been gravely affected during the genocide against the Tutsi, on both sides, many journalists being victims, but second also journalists being among the perpetrators, considering what hate media did. Now, it was important to bring together professional practitioners within an organization where they could have that solidarity, then define their interests.
You have over 300 members, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes, we have,
and only around 100 participated in this vote.
Yes.
How do you explain the interest of journalists in these associations basing on these happenings?
Yes, considerably, that was it wasn't a good number, to be honest with you.
Of course.
Of people would expect. Though historically it's not on the smaller side. There's a time when we would call a meeting and there would be around 15 people.
So are we taking pride in this?
No, we absolutely don't. And that is, there are two reasons why. Number one, when an election is not very competitive, especially on the chairman level, people tend not to come. It wasn't that competitive because the chairman was unopposed. When it is very competitive, people are mobilized and they show up. Second, of course, is defining the benefits. Journalists, we are not very easy people. People will say, now, what is in for me? The moment is not very clear. And also the fact that not attending a general assembly, there is no sanction that follows it, then people decide not to come. Which we consider, we appreciate the challenges of mobilizing 300 people to show up, 300, 400 people to show up. But also we appreciate that the onus is on us, those who are running the association, to make sure it is useful and clearly practically useful, so that members take pride in it and show up. But also
own the process.
Also take up their own responsibilities, because you don't become a member of an organization when you expect all the benefits without having responsibilities. Attending meetings and putting forward your own suggestions.
What do you usually discuss in these meetings, for example?
No, it depends on what is on the agenda and what is happening at a particular time.
Tell me the agenda of the last meetings that you had, apart from the election one.
The election, of course, there was presenting a term report. We have to give a report on activities and a report on financial resources, how we are standing. Actually, it is the first time since I joined that there was even a financial report. I remember one member said that he had been there during the founding, and the last General Assembly where I had seen a financial report was in 98. So it had been 12 years without a financial report. this time there was a financial report because we now have resources. Okay, they're still very limited, but at least you find something on the account. Previously, there was, when the previous president was handing over, he handed over 10,000 francs. This one handed over 8 million after it raising almost 100 million francs. So giving that activity report and showing that this is what we did, this is where we got funding, and this is what we used it, this is how we accounted for it, and this is what is balance. And this is how we project in the future, the next quarter or 2 years, how we intend to generate revenue to be able to implement particular activities.
I'll take you to task on one thing. When you talked about the previous leadership of the association playing a role in some of the, in quotes, the negativity, probably negative thoughts, the negative energy when it came to understanding the association itself. Tell me, when did you join the association yourself?
Myself, I attended my first meeting in 2007.
2007.
Yes.
The association was launched or started in 1995.
95.
You attended in 2007.
Yes.
During this period until 2014, Gonzag, did you have to wait to actively push for the change that probably you're saying the new leadership is bringing?
No, you don't wait. You don't wait because
yes.
I think in 2009 I contested for one of the posts. I did not win.
Your friends didn't turn up.
No, I don't. I can't speculate on the particular reason at that time.
Yes.
But there are many reasons. To be honest with you, there was a time when there would be active outside interference in the association. I'm not saying it is no longer there, but it was obvious that particular interest, the ruling party would have an interest in how this particular association would be run. After a period of negotiations and different reforms that happened in the media, there was a willingness to have a certain degree of allowing this change. It is related, I'm not going too deep why, but it is related to why this particular organization was doing something, but when a section of journalists did not consider it as representative of them. Because there was a time when journalists calling themselves independent created what they called Independent Association of Rwanda Journalists.
Yes.
And it was a tug of war because even registering was very hard. Some other state agencies got involved, diplomats got involved. It became a dispute because they were saying that this is not an not an association that represents both pro-government and critical journalists. So the different reforms that happened, for instance, in government policy itself, but also in how we organize ourselves as journalists, changed. At the moment, at least, as far as I know, no journalist disputes the legitimacy of this association.
Let me ask you, you've mentioned the issue of interference, and which you openly say here that you're not saying that it doesn't happen anymore. Could you elaborate on that?
Maybe the format changed.
What do you mean by format?
If you are a journalist,
yes,
you know very well, there's always a debate. If the other time somebody issued a report on civil society organizations,
yes,
Maina Kiai, and he talked about different interferences on how unclear operatives try to impose particular leaders on some NGOs. We were not immune from that. A journalist association is very important, especially when it does the role of advocacy. So that was a fact. It was there, and it was not deniable that the ruling interest would have a stake in deciding who becomes chairman of the association. Now, of course, because all journalists are represented, definitely their interests are still there. But there is an accommodative stance of saying that, okay, even if we don't like what this journalist writes or speaks of, at least they can all be within an umbrella. And there was a reason why, because when the government accepted to implement media reforms and introduce media self-regulation, it was important that it is established in a condition where journalists can trust. And the moment, if they had had an association, they wouldn't trust, because we are the vanguard of creating the self-regulation mechanism. That means it would have been split. Journalists of this side would have created their own, and the other side would have created their own, and it would have been complicated in legal matters because it is provided for by the media law. So that legalization allowed that different voices could be heard. So that role was played, and the self-regulation mechanism is there, and it is independent of the association, because that was our purpose. Even though some people insisted that it should be part of the association for different reasons, But for us, I'm among those who say that the self-regulation mechanism is independent because it also serves the public, because the public who brings complaints in the circumstances the media has not done.
Let's talk about your role and the mandate of this association.
But that was the point I was giving out to explain
yes.
why I think there was a change.
In interference, or the change in
the form of interference, of course, and the level of interference.
And the level of interference. Now let's talk about the teeth part of this association. What can you be able to do today, being as an association or an umbrella union where you have journalists who are registered to be members? What can you do for them today?
Because second to solidarity, our main function is advocacy.
Solidarity for what or against what?
No, as being together. Because when we are being together, you can meet and discuss. Then you can develop an agenda and advocate for that. And because I will give a practical example. For instance, tomorrow there is a meeting where we shall represent journalists in discussing the Rwanda Prime Minister's order determining the functions of Rwanda in originating media. You know, you have like TV, you have radio, and Rwanda is involved. So there's a Prime Minister's order which is supposed to regulate that. And they had made a draft. The moment we saw it, actually, we were on a tour in Sweden, and we landed on it. We found it with the Swedes, and said, this is what they're planning. And we realized that it was giving so much power to Rwanda to regulate even content, deciding. It could have so much power to even say what Anangwe is saying on radio, we can have this and this. And the media and government media policy does not allow government agencies to have that power. It says journalists should regulate that themselves. So we petitioned the minister, we called the prime minister and said, no, this is different. So they allowed a change. So we called journalists consultatively. So we developed what we think should be in the rural prime minister's order. And most of what we asked, basically everything we asked has been accepted. So tomorrow we're going to Rwanda to finalize it, so it is sent to Prime Minister. So this is an example of the function what we do as journalists. Secondly, we have to represent journalists in interacting with journalists in the region and abroad. Like on the weekend, the sports journalists came to us and said previously that they have an invitation from journalists in Burundi. They're going to go there to interact, to do different activities, play football match. The association also comes in to support. A person has been nominated by association to represent, to go there with the sports journalists so that we interact with our fellow practitioners in the region and abroad. So we even represent with the YAJA, that is the Eastern African region, the IFJ, International Federation of Journalists. So these are particular areas of what we do practically. The other thing, of course, is everything that comes up. Journalists have an issue or somebody wants to interact with Rwandan journalists, we have to provide a platform. There are other things we do administratively, like providing a newsroom for freelance journalists. The other time we presented in the General Assembly that we are trying to put up a press club. The many places we have visited, we found that journalists have a press club, a cafeteria or a mess where they can interact and so on.
The challenge Gonzaga I see today is there seems to be a sense of journalists being scattered and you know, being everyone for themselves, you know, everybody for themselves. And I blame this on the media campaign, maybe from your association, in telling them these kind of things, because at the end of the day, if they don't have this information, nobody will participate actively in your activities.
Yes, I will admit readily that some of what we do, our members don't know, or other journalists who would be interested in being active members may not know. There could be a reason. Maybe we don't communicate better. Maybe we don't get as much opportunity as you have given us to be on air and say that. But yes, we realize that. That's why we put on the press a website. It is recent. It's only 3 months old. So that we're developing a communication strategy, a group email, so that everything we are doing or what people expect us to do and we're not doing, they can readily criticize us and point it out, and so that you go and do this and this. Yes, within the mandate of. I think if we were successful in that, then the general membership would be more interested. But when you say scattered, I don't know exactly what you mean, because there's an element in that media is business. It is within the capitalist class.
Yes.
You establish a radio or TV to not only to do a public good, but also to make money. So that in itself can decide.
When I say scattered, let me explain myself. When I say scattered, I mean, today, are you able to tell me the total number of journalists in Rwanda?
No, I'm not able.
You're not able to say that.
And there's nobody in this country who is able. Yes.
They should be, because we have press cards, and this can help you to do the numbers.
Absolutely, yes.
Of course, you can be able to know these are roughly these are the numbers. Then you look at the issue of the participation in activities of the association, like the elections. We had only 100 and something turning up, out of 300. So it makes you wonder: are the 300 plus members dormant members, or just numbers, or ghost members? That's why I'm saying the issue of
that was also a subject of debate during the General Assembly itself,
yes,
on deciding who votes. Because people say, do we have a voters register? Do you know who is a member full time? We realize, for instance, nobody pays membership fee. It is provided for in our statute that you have to pay. No one has ever paid. Okay, for the last 10 or 15 years. We know that you have to have a press card. The new press cards, not more than 50 journalists have them, and I know there are at least 500 practicing journalists in the country. They don't. Those are structural problems we face in our profession, because by the nature, I'm among those who advocated that the requirements that were in the previous law to become a journalist be removed, because I define that journalism, by the nature, as part of free expression, we should give space to media owners and managers to hire who they think is competent.
Yes.
And we advocated for that, and it changed the new media law. And I remember one of the people who supported me on that position was the director of his radio. So because they understood what it entails in practice.
Yes.
But of course, it has its own implications, because to mean the open entry and exit. Yes. But of course, determined by media managers, because they are also competent to decide who has the capability. They will not hire somebody who can't deliver, or somebody who break the ethics.
Yes.
But of course, it brings in that implication of knowing that what are the total numbers. If they are freelancers, how do you decide that? We are mobilizing and hopeful that everybody will follow what is demanded by the media law of having proper accreditation with a proper press card. Whether it will be achieved or not, that is open.
Yes. There is an issue of also looking at the standards of journalism today in Rwanda, looking at the strides that have been taken in improving this sector, and of course comparing ourselves with what's happening in the region. What can we emulate? What can we leave out? Gonzag, today, in your own opinion, what are the real challenges affecting the media industry?
The real challenges remain making money. Whether the economy is functioning properly, or at a sufficient pace where people can use media to generate sufficient revenues to be able to pay quality staff and pay them, of course, worthwhile of their quality. I think that is the main challenge. I'm not among those who believe the main challenge is professionalism. No, I think there are sufficiently well-trained journalists and other people who can be tapped into the sector.
Yes.
As long as a media house has the resources to have an editor,
yes,
a sub-editor, and a reporter, to have a structure.
Yes.
The moment you have that, the professionalism level would be met. The other challenge, of course, which is practical, has to do with self-censorship.
Yes.
The media in this country reflects the country itself. Most Rwandans self-censor. And by that reason, also our journalists still censure. They are not men who come on radio and say certain things. For instance, I said there was state interference or ruling party interference in the management of the association.
Not many can say that.
Not many will say it. Even in other areas, in most of the civil society organizations where they find that they are active. But that is the nature of how our country is organized. And it reflects on us. So it creates some state of self-censorship. Maybe others, they face sanction when they are willing to say it could affect how you get business, how you are able to, some talk shows fail to get sponsors if they are very vocal. We realize that. It may not be very visible to the open eye, but it happens.
So which way forward?
Yes.
Which way forward?
The way forward is, of course, we have to make sure that, number one, as journalists, we have to use the space we have. The media law, the access to information law, and the laws having a role in regulating the media, the RB law, they provide particular space. They are actual progressive laws, but we haven't put them to use seriously. Okay, the access to information law, I understand the ministerial orders, some of them were aggressive. They even, especially the ones which define state secrets information, which is not allowed. They are not very good. But still, the space that is given, it's on us to use it. We push, because nobody is going to give greater freedom on a platter. You have to campaign. The moment you use it productively, use it to generate stories, you gather momentum and get public support. That even those ones who want to suppress, they will find the population has moved with you as journalists, then they will have little space to do. But the moment we don't exploit even the opportunities that are there, that is a challenge.
All right.
Secondly, is to continue advocacy in deciding where we can expand press freedom so that we move towards there. But also develop a strategy that wins. Because if you're a confrontation, the other side also decides to be confrontation.
Yes,
and you know who will lose.
Yes.
So where you can find space for negotiations, please, we pass with that.
All right.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Gonzag Muganwa, for those remarks right here. Of course, you're saying that we need to gather momentum and get, public support on issues that we believe are critical to us as journalists. Of course, keen interest being put in terms of looking at the performance of the Rwanda Association of Journalists, definitely with this new mandate, which you have really praised, which you're part of. I didn't ask you earlier on. Your position is an appointed position. Definitely,
I'm a bureaucrat, so
yes.
I implement the manifesto of the elected ones.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're appointed.
Yes.
Yes. So we will definitely be looking at the performance
but
of that.
The fact that we are having this debate, a public debate on radio, a critical, serious debate, that means it is putting pressure on us to make sure that next time you call me and I said what you said on this radio, how far?
Yes, exactly.
So
that's
we also thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Gonzag, my guest on One today. Of course, we've been looking at the issues of the Rwanda Journalists Association, picking up from what we had from Jane Wimana, plus, of course, many other issues that we've talked about right here. Of course, right about now, it's time for me to sign out. Keep it Contact FM. Goodbye for now.